Hi, welcome to Story Time with Gigi. Today we're going to be reading an interesting story about the life of Walt Disney. I do not make films primarily for children. I make them for the child in all of us, whether we be 6 or 60. It's one of his quotes. Our story today is entitled Walt's Imagination. The Life of Walt Disney by Doreen Rappaport and illustrated by John Pomeroy. I believe the copyright on this was in 2018. Walt wandered the family farm and saw rabbits, foxes, raccoons, bobwhites, crows, and cardinals. He bottle fed his favorite pig, Skinny, and rode hogs into their muddy pig pens. He put his ear to railroad tracks nearby to hear the trains coming. His neighbor paid him a nickel to draw a picture of a horse. The result was pretty terrible, but both the doctor and his wife praised the drawing highly. Walt thought life in Marceline, Missouri, wondrous. Unfortunately, the family farm failed. When Walt was 9, his family moved to Kansas City, Missouri. His father started a newspaper delivery business. Walt and one of his brothers, 18-year-old Roy, worked for him. For 6 years every morning at 3:30 a.m., Walt trudged through snowdrifts, got drenched in rain, and sweltered in heat. Their father paid all the other newsboys, but not Roy and Walt. After all, I clothe and feed you, he told them. After 2 years, Roy quit and left home. Walt took an extra job after school for spending money. He was constantly tired and often fell asleep in class. I was working all the time. I never had any real playtime. That must have been hard getting up so early. Still, Walt found energy to draw. When his 4th grade teacher told her students to draw flowers, Walt drew a human face on them with arms for the leaves. His teacher was not pleased. Walt also loved to perform. He went to stage shows with his friend Walt Pfeiffer. They copied down jokes and songs to create their own acts. Walt sneaked out of the house at night to perform in talent contests. Once they won 5th prize and 25 cents. I liked acting. Liked the applause, liked the cash prizes, liked the weird smells and weirder sights behind the scenes. Walt loved acting, but drawing won out. A barber decorated his shop with Walt's caricatures of his customers and paid him in haircuts and money. It was a great stimulant to know my efforts were appreciated. In high school, he was praised for his cartoons in the school paper. He wanted to go to art school at night. His father agreed to pay if Walt got a job. Walt got 2 jobs and studied cartooning and anatomy. He soon realized he would never be a fine artist. His talent was in caricature. It was the turning point in my whole career. When Walt was 16, the United States was at war. He wanted to fight for his country like his brothers Roy and Ray, but he was too young. He tried to join the Red Cross, but his father refused to sign the papers. He begged his mother, and finally she signed for both parents. She never knew that changed Walt. She never knew that Walt changed his birth date to make himself 17, the legal age needed to join the Red Cross. Sorry, I read that wrong. I just had to get in there. In France, he delivered food to bombed-out villages. During his free time, he drew on tanks and on helmets. He drew caricatures of soldiers. He sent drawings to humor magazines, but he never sold any. When Walt returned from France, he dropped out of high school to pursue his dream to be an artist. He fell in love with animated cartoons. He pored over photographs of horses galloping and athletes running so his drawings would be more realistic. The trick of making things move on film is what got me. He used his earnings from the Red Cross to set up an animation studio. He created a 12.5-minute silent cartoon about a real girl in a cartoon world. Alice rode an elephant in a parade. Giraffes, rabbits, and dogs welcomed her. She danced while a cat orchestra played. No one bought the Alice comedies to show in theaters. Walt was broke. Roy told him to join him in California, the center of movie making. Walt packed a cardboard suitcase with a borrowed suit, 1 pair of pants, 2 shirts, and animation equipment. Upon arrival, Walt convinced Roy to set up an animation studio with him. They worked in a garage. Roy did the photography. Walt did the drawings. They sold 55 cartoons about Alice and her cat Julius at bullfights, horse races, the beach, and in the jungle. They hired more artists, including a friend, UB Iwerks. Walt only drew the first 6 films, but he edited every scene of every cartoon. Moviegoers liked the Alice comedies. But Walt knew he had so much more to learn, so much to improve on. I was ambitious and wanted to make better pictures. In 1927, a full-length movie with sound came out. Moviegoers loved it. A few cartoons had music and sound, but the sound didn't match the actions. Walt set out to solve that problem. He thought up a new character, a mouse named Mickey. UB refined Walt's sketch of Mickey so he would be drawn faster. It all started with a mouse. UB provided key sketches for the 14,400 drawings for Steamboat Willie starring Mickey Mouse, who used animals as musical instruments. Other animators finished the drawings. It was hard timing the music to the actions, but Walt did it. Music has always been a prominent part in all our products. Moviegoers young and old loved Mickey, and so did the critics. Walt won an honorary Academy Award for creating him. It hit them with a bang. Fan mail piled up. Soon there were Mickey Mouse clubs and Mickey dolls, books, blocks, puzzles, watches, caps, socks, shoes, footballs, boxing gloves, dollhouses, and comic strips in 22 countries. Walt created more Mickey cartoons. He didn't draw anymore, but for 20 years he was Mickey's voice. Walt decided to make other cartoons. He and UB dreamed up A Night in a Cemetery. UB did the animation as the music swelled. Skeletons floated out of the graves. Their bones rattled as they danced and smashed into one another. One skeleton played a xylophone on the ribs of another skeleton. When dawn came, the skeletons scurried back into their graves. Moviegoers loved it. Walt hired more animators and supervised every detail in the 75 silly symphonies. Each symphony, the idea was a different story based on music with comedy. Walt kept thinking up new ideas. When color film was invented, Walt immediately wanted to use it. Roy was against it. Color film cost too much. Walt pushed ahead and changed a black and white film, Flowers and Trees, into color. Moviegoers and critics loved it, and it won an Academy Award. Next, Walt and his staff tackled the folk tale, The Three Little Pigs. Artist Fred Moore gave each pig a separate personality. You have to portray not only that this thing is moving, but it is actually alive and thinks. Moviegoers heard huffing and puffing as the wolf blew down Fiddler Pig's and Fifer Pig's houses, but the wolf failed to destroy Practical Pig's house of bricks. Moviegoers loved all three pigs and the song they sang, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, the Big Bad Wolf, the Big Bad Wolf. I love that one. Many friends were created for Mickey. Walt and UB created Minnie Mouse, his girlfriend. Pluto the pup was Mickey's pet. Minnie had a dog named Fifi and a cat named Figaro. 3 animators created Donald, who became as popular as Mickey. Donald was good-natured but rude. His girlfriend Daisy Duck helped cool him down. Donald had 3 nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, who were identical triplets. Art Babbitt and Frank Webb created Goofy, Mickey's and Donald's best friend. The cartoon shorts were great, but Walt and Roy didn't make much money. Walt wanted his cartoon characters to move like real people. Artists were hired to teach the animators to draw better so that every action a character made looked real. The animators sketched live models. They studied slow motion photographs of glass breaking and bubbles forming and popping to make these actions look real too. We invested them with life. The animators showed Walt their sketches. Walt looked at the sketches while the animators read the plot and dialogue under each one. If Walt didn't like what he saw or heard, he raised his eyebrows, coughed, or drummed his fingers on the table. He made suggestions on plots and gags. Sometimes he acted out what he wanted. Many employees found him inspirational. Some thought him too controlling. Audiences loved these short cartoons, but Walt wasn't satisfied. He decided to do something no one had ever done: make a full-length color cartoon. Everyone thought it was a bad idea. He adapted the fairy tale Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. I thought it was a perfect story. It had the sympathetic dwarfs, the heavy, the prince, and the girl. Each motion a character made required 24 drawings. Each drawing was done in ink on one side of a transparent sheet and painted in watercolors on the other side. It took hundreds of artists working 3 years to make over 2 million drawings for Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. A special camera was developed to shoot the movie. Walt looked at every drawing and edited every scene. The very first Disney princess. Moviegoers loved Snow White, and so did the critics. Full-length cartoons were here to stay. Walt kept coming up with new ideas. 1,000 artists and technicians worked on Fantasia, which set pictures to classical music. Disney animators tackled Pinocchio, about a puppet who became a boy, and Dumbo, about an elephant with very big ears, and Bambi, about a baby deer. Clay models were made of Bambi. Fawns were brought into the studio so the artists could study them from all angles. These pictures represent a lot of work and a lot of thought. Critics loved Pinocchio, Bambi, and Dumbo. Many critics, but not all, praised Fantasia. Not as many moviegoers came to see it as Walt had hoped, but he refused to be discouraged. Many Disney animators were unhappy. Only Walt's name appeared in the film credits, and they did all the animation. They had worked long hours without extra pay for the 4 full-length cartoons. They felt they deserved more money. They wanted a union to represent their rights. So many Disney employees went on strike. Walt was angry and felt betrayed. Even when the strike was settled, he never forgot the incident. In 1941, America was at war again. Disney created training films for the government. These films didn't satisfy Walt's imagination. When the war ended, the studio made animated cartoons again. But soon Walt was restless. The studio was so big, with so many employees and so many productions, he couldn't supervise every detail in every film as he once had. Walt became fascinated with miniature trains and mastered the tools to build one. He loved putting it together, working on every detail, the way he had once worked on every detail in his films. What fun I am having! He began to imagine a theme park with a village that looked like his hometown, Marceline, a main street with stores selling Disney products and a narrow gauge train that circled it. I'm going to build an amusement park where families will visit and have fun. Roy didn't like the idea. Amusement park operators told him it would fail, but Walt plunged ahead. While Walt was working on Disneyland, his imagination was still working full-time. After television was invented, millions of kids tuned in every day to watch the Mickey Mouse Club. They saw and heard Walt talk about Disneyland, his work in progress. They watched animated cartoons and documentaries on natural history. They learned about pioneer Davy Crockett, and millions of kids sang his song, Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, and brought coonskin caps sold by Disney. Walt kept working on Disneyland, dreaming up rides and places in the past and future. He saw families on paddle wheelers going down a river and people visiting a jungle in the American frontier. The original Steamboat Willie would be shown in one of 6 cinemas. I want them to feel they are in another world. He supervised every detail, and many talented people worked to make his dream come true. Today, there are 12 Disney theme parks around the world with many rides and many stores. Disneyland will never be completed. It will continue to grow as long as there is imagination left in the world. And that's our story. I hope you liked it. Make sure you like and subscribe and share with your friends. Bye until next time.